All right, here we go. Good evening and welcome everyone to the regular meeting of the Solvang City Council for Monday, November 14, 2022. I call the meeting to order now at 6:30 p.m. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Councilmember Clark.
Lame duck present.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante.
Present.
Councilmember Rona.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
Mayor Urick.
Here with my shotgun. Shoot those ducks, sorry. All right. Councilmember Clark, would you please, yeah, all right. Councilmember Clark, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please place your right hand over your heart and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. And moving on to proclamations, ceremonial items, and commendations. Mr. City Manager, do you have
I do.
presentation?
I'm lucky enough to present the Employee of the Quarter. I didn't have a program. I'm going to come to the, ask Candace LeBaron to come up. I'll let you guys see her back there. I guess you know who won. So, Candace, this is a little certificate that we provide,
Thank you very much.
and her name goes on the plaque that goes out front with her photo. Very nice. And I just want to say a few words about, on the application of the person who submitted your request to be Employee of the Quarter. So, it says here, Candace goes above and beyond to help everyone. She offers incredible customer service, and she has a can-do attitude about everything she does. She took on the special event permitting process and learned everything she could do so she could support people interested in doing special events in Solvang. She's a truly pleasure to work with. And honestly, so last year, when I was still retired, I volunteered at the Haunted House, and it was Candace's first week on the job. And she flipped her coveralls on and was working very hard, and she's been a great asset to the city. And obviously, your fellow employees appreciate that.
Appreciate
We have a
it,
little
too.
gift for you also.
Thank you very
some
much.
Cash
Thank you.
for you.
Oh,
And
nice.
if you
Could
have-
always use that.
If you have any words?
I would, just a
Yeah,
few, yeah.
go right ahead.
I just want to thank you and thank Jenny McClurg, my amazing supervisor, for nominating me. And I want to say I truly love my job, and I love serving this community. It's an honor. Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah.
Could you take a picture with us, Suzanne? I know you're not included in this.
We don't have David Packard take pictures. I still text back and forth with him.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
Is he still here?
Utah. I think he's assistant city manager somewhere in Utah.
Oh, yes.
Kind of-
Thank you.
He's LDS, so it works out really well.
I wholeheartedly concur with that assessment from her supervisor. So thank you, Candace, for all you do for the city. All right, and next up, I have a presentation, a proclamation that I will be reading. November 2022 is now Family Court Awareness Month. So bear with me. Whereas the mission at One Mom's Battle and the Family Court Awareness Month Committee is to increase awareness on the importance of a family court system that prioritizes child safety and acts in the best interest of children. And whereas the mission at the FCAMC is to increase awareness on the importance of education and training on domestic violence, childhood trauma, and post-separation abuse for all professionals working within the family court system. And whereas the mission at the FCAMC is to educate judges and other family court professionals on the empirical data and research that is currently available. Such research is a critical component to making decisions that are truly in the best interest of children. This research includes the Adverse Childhood Experiences study from the CDC with Kaiser Permanente, Saunders study from the U.S. Department of Justice, the Meyer study, child custody outcomes in cases involving abuse allegations, and the Santa Clara Law Study confronting the challenge of high conflict personality in family court. And whereas the mission at the FCAMC is fueled by the desire for awareness and change in the family court system while honoring the hundreds of children in the United States who have been murdered by a parent after a custody court rejected the other parent's plea for protection. That source is from the Center for Judicial Excellence. Now therefore it be resolved that I, Mayor Charlie Uhrig, along with the City Council of the City of Solvang, do hereby proclaim the month of November 2022 as Family Court Awareness Month and encourage all citizens to join me in support in recognizing the importance of a family court system that prioritizes child safety and acts in the best interest of children. And I believe we have someone on Zoom. Tracy, if you would like to say a few words here. I believe you're on mute. Oh, or
Hold on a second, Tracy.
try that again. Tracy, can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
I just wanted to thank you very much, Mayor Uhrig and the City Council. Thank you. Today, you're joining over 100 local governments in California, proclaiming that November is Family Court Awareness Month. I come to you today as a teacher, as a child safety advocate. I also come to you as a survivor of intimate partner violence, post-separation abuse, and as a protective parent. As you spoke of, the primary focus of this year's Family Court Awareness Month is education. Child protection is often viewed as the job of social services, but family courts are ruling on cases with child abuse involvement each and every day. Most would be shocked that in many states, the family court judges who make rulings that impact children's lives have little to no training in childhood trauma, childhood emotional, physical, and sexual abuse, coercive control, and domestic violence. A few statistics I brought with me today are that 1 in 15 children are victims of child abuse, usually by a family member or parent. As you said, over 58,000 of these children are court-ordered into unsupervised visitation with abusive parents each year. More than 50% of the time, when an allegation of child sexual abuse is raised, the courts are switching physical custody to the alleged abuser. Abusive parents are more likely to seek sole custody than nonviolent ones, and they are successful about 70% of the time. Domestic violence often worsens after separation or divorce, with the focus turning to the children. Up to 60% of perpetrators who abuse their spouse will also abuse their child. Domestic violence is about power and control. The desire to maintain power and control doesn't mysteriously vanish when a relationship ends. The family court system becomes a new and highly effective platform for abusers. And unfortunately, those abusers know how to manipulate judges when they're untrained. Our primary goal this year is also to shine a spotlight on the need for mandated training for judges and family court professionals who are ruling in cases with child safety and domestic violence concerns every day. Our children's lives are literally dependent on courts becoming educated on these issues. And it means the world not only to me, but to so many families in our area that are trying to protect the children. The last thing I'd like to do is invite anyone who's interested in learning more. We are having a critical conversations series throughout the month, as well as several events to educate both lawmakers and the public. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Tracy. Appreciate all the work that you do on behalf of the children. All right, moving on to public communications for any items, non-agenda and consent items. I have some speaker slips right now, and I will call out the names. Alan Jones is first up.
Thank you, Mayor Uhrig and council members. I just want to thank you for your service, for doing this. I know sometimes it's very thankless, but I just want to thank you for that, and also the new members that are going to be on the council and the members that are your last meeting coming up here. I just want to thank you too for all you've done for the city. So I know all of you personally. I know you're very compassionate. I know you care about people in the community. your transparency, full disclosure, and all those items. You really care about, I think, the elderly, people that are low income, people that are in the workforce here that are trying to make it to work in our city that don't make very much money. And I know you have those people in mind. I wanted to congratulate you on the sales tax increase that was passed, but I don't think it meets your transparency, disclosure, and your compassion that I think all of you have for the citizens of Solvang. And here are the few reasons why. First of all, the ballot read a 1 cent increase. It didn't say 1%. It said 1 cent. I don't know of anybody that says, how much is your sales tax? Oh, it's 7 3/4 cents. That's what it is, 7 3/4 cents. Nobody says that. What's your income tax rate? You don't say that. What's your bed tax? 12 cents. You don't say that. It's per cent. It's a 1% increase. You can't just say 1 cent. Yeah, I think the only thing I can think of is that whoever wrote that meant to say 1 cent to try to fool the voter. And that's the only reason I think, why wouldn't you just say it goes from 7.75% to 8.75%? That's what you're voting on. And nowhere in there, in the ballot, anywhere in the verbiage does it say anything about that. I've talked to someone that voted yes on it just the other day. She's a renter. She's works here in town, barely making it. And she voted yes. And we said, well, why did you vote yes? She says, well, it just said 1 cent, and it said that the tourists pay most of it. And we said, no, there's no exemption for locals on the sales tax. Everybody pays the sales tax. And her first reaction was, well, that's deceptive. And she said, well, I buy most things online. And we said, all your online purchases are going to be taxed at that higher rate also. It's not just for purchases that are online are not exempt. I think the arguments for were a little bit deceptive that were in there, and there are no arguments against. I know you probably were up against the wall trying to get an argument in. It looks like there was an extension and a last-minute argument for the ballot that was placed in late August, and there was no chance for a rebuttal to get in there also. So I don't think it was really disclosed to the voters as good as it could be. The other thing that I think that is going to be confusing is that when you order products online, the vendor typically looks at the zip code. And the Solvang zip code includes a huge area in the valley, not just the incorporated area. So people outside the incorporated area of Solvang may be subject to an 8.75% sales tax increase inadvertently. So for that, I'll wrap it up, but I think that what you ought to do now is hold off on enacting this, and you should probably come back to the voters again at the next election and have full disclosure on these things to make it clear for everybody what they're voting on. So thank you very much.
Thank you for those comments. Next up, Rennie Kerskov.
Dear Mayor, City Council, as Alan said, thanks for your service. I know it's not always a great task sitting up there. But this week I was looking at the expense approval list, marked agenda item 4D on tonight's agenda. And I came across a rather large amount. It says Senior Bradford, final payment, $250,000. But in the newspaper it says Senior quit. Quote, in submitting her resignation, Bradford said both parties came to an amicable agreement to pursue different paths. So if Senior quits or resigned, why are we paying her $250,000? I seem to recall that Senior's employment agreement says if she's at fault, there's no payment, meaning $0. If there's no fault, but the city wants to get rid of her for whatever reason, the city will just have to pay her 6 months' salary. But I don't recall Senior's salary being $500,000, which equate to the $250,000 she was paid. So one can only assume that Senior was being fired, considering the fact that the city is rushing to pay her much more than she's due. In other words, we're talking about a settlement payment. So why are you taking $250,000 of the taxpayers' money, plus a recruitment fee of 27.5 times, plus downtime, plus training, etc.? I mean, those of us who has replaced leaders knows there's a lot of cost involved. It's probably going to cost the city of Solvang close to $500,000. To me, that's a shitload of money, and I imagine it would be to most local businesses who collect sales tax and TOT to pay for it. I mean, I keep hearing about water treatment plant costs. We can't afford this and that. Sales tax need to go up, and water prices need to go up. Actually, the first $25 to $50 million of retail sales that Alan just was talking about, the sales tax increase on that, you already spent on getting rid of senior for whatever reason. I think you owe the taxpayers and the residents an explanation why we are spending close to $500,000 getting rid of a competent woman and a city manager who apparently was doing a fine job, unless there's something we don't know, was chair of the Central Coast League of City Managers and even got a national award for city budgeting. I know the city attorney is probably going to say in a second that it's all confidential information, but some of you talk a lot about transparency on your election website, etc. Maybe we should be transparent and let us know why we are spending this kind of money getting rid of one person or unnecessarily paying it to a person who quit. What's the reason? Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. Next up, Ted Hansen.
Good evening, City Council members. I too would like to thank you for your service. What I'm coming to talk to you about, I really feel for you because you're trying to solve a problem which, from what I hear, we moved to the Valley a little over 4 years ago. You're trying to solve a problem that your distant predecessors heaped upon the entire city, this issue with water. But the ordinance that was enacted in July has disparately impacted my family, and I'm sure I'm not the only one in this, so that's why I'm here to talk about it. So in the previous 2 months alone, it cost me an extra $465 for my household in an increase in water bill over year to year. Now, when we first moved to the Valley, we were warned that Solvang had higher water prices, and when we moved from Buellton over to here, we knew that we essentially were paying an extra about $150 a month in water fees. Again, not your fault. But I come back from being away for half the year serving our country somewhere else, and then the first thing my family gets, we have 4 children, my wife and myself, a household of 6. The way this thing was tiered and calculated, it doesn't account for larger households, like accurately or fairly. And also, the other part of it was it compared it to 2 years ago. Well, over 40% of households in Solvang are rentals. I didn't live in that house 2 years ago. So if a childless couple lived there, now my water usage is compared to theirs. Again, in the previous 2 months that ordinance was in effect, it cost us $465 in the penalty portions alone, to be clear, in the penalty portions alone. And so when I came by the office today, I was told there was no plan to remunerate any of those fees to anyone. So I'm just asking and urging that there be made a way that families that were, we want this to be a family town. As a matter of fact, 2 of the kids in that household were adopted through foster care. We just talked about family court. And so large families shouldn't be penalized for, excessively more than anyone else for living in Solvang. And I know this wasn't your problem to start with, but we've got to find a solution that doesn't harm our families. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments.
And your service.
Yep. And lastly, CJ Jackson. That's all I have for written speaker slips.
Mayor Uhrig, council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm going to take my glasses off so I don't look like I'm actually in witness protection. I took the opportunity to watch your last meeting, and in that discussion, you had a discussion of water, which already appears to have come back before you once again. I didn't realize it, but I've actually lived in this community now for 27 years. I don't know how that happened. But I have an understanding of the history of the decisions made by the council and various other influences that impacted the very situation you face. I would like to ask, since this is public comment for things not on today's agenda, to have placed on the agenda a report from staff that documents the history of the major implications and water decisions that have come to a confluence in the decision you face. It's kind of like getting on a tour bus that has multiple stations, and you get on the tour bus at the 12th station, you miss 1 through 12. And all of those individual increments bear on the impacts of your citizenry and their understanding of the problems you face and what they are, and will also have an impact on how they look at the solutions you propose. So it is imperative that you and your successors on this board have a common institutional memory of what got you here. And when I listened to the last meeting, there were components that were discussed, but not the complete, the Delta smelt issue, the host of other elements that have influenced where you are today. Secondly, as this gentleman acknowledged, you withdrew your negative reinforcement methodology for trying to solve a problem. When you look at something like a moratorium, that is a solution. Is that a solution for the problem you have? The problem you have is Governor Newsom told you cut 20%. Therefore, you had to find a means to encourage your population to do so. Maybe you got to try something else. If you've rescinded that, I have a suggestion. I think you need a very public outreach to the community. We can all let's hang together or we will all hang separately kind of concept, and go out to homeowners associations, to schools, and everyone else that bears upon the water utility, do an outreach, a program, a recognition, and ask for help. That's the positive reinforcement approach. At least you can do that in the interim while you take a harder look at your negative enforcement approach to see if it's working. You're stuck with the proposition that you have a problem to solve. If you were to pick a moratorium, for instance, you'll have an awful lot of lead time before that can be effective. So I ask that your solutions fit the problem, identify the problem, and in the interim, empower these wonderful people behind me and in these other organizations to start a very public outreach about cutting water use. Otherwise, you're going to be grasping at ideas, discussing them for weeks, and not hitting the problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, CJ. Appreciate the comments. So I don't have any other speaker slips. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak now on any items that, again, are not on the agenda and or on the consent agenda?
Hi, Frank Smithson. Been lived here about a year and a half now. 2 questions on the Measure U. It says that it will stay in force till voters have it removed. How does that come about? And the second one is the customer or citizen oversight. Who will be picking the oversight committee? Will you all be picking the oversight committee, or how will that be handled? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to make any comments at this time that is not on the agenda and or just on the consent agenda? Seeing none, and I don't have any, I'm not seeing any out on Zoom. No. Bring it back, and we will now move to the city manager's report.
Good evening. Excuse me, a few updates. One is on the haunted house. It was very successful this year. 2,700 attendees went through the tour. There was $32,000 in revenue from the event. So, and Jenny McClurg would like to thank some of the more prominent volunteers. We have Vivian Ken Ziegler, Casey McGuire, Athena McCandlish, Councilwoman Claudia Arona, Mike Andrews from Waste Management, and obviously all the Parks and Rec staff, and of course the monsters and guides that helped make this year a great success, was one of the updates. And then secondly, the city, I just found out last week, is launching a new website this Friday. So they've been working on it for quite a while, and the scheduled date is going to be from 7 a.m. to 11 on Friday morning. will transform into this new website, and hopefully everyone loves it, and it's better looking than the last one. But, so that will be happening. And then I wanted to introduce Wendy Berry, who is your new Administrative Services Director. I think she's here. I don't know if you want to come up and say a couple of words, Wendy, but Wendy actually worked here when I started in 2005. So I guess she's kind of welcome back. But
Yes, welcome back.
Yes, welcome back, and everything has changed, but I am excited to jump right in, and there's great staff here, and they've been very helpful my first day, and I look forward to coming to the meetings and doing everything I can to get everybody back on track. Thanks.
Thank you, Wendy. It's good to have you back. All right, moving on to, I show item 3, any council comments and/or requests?
Just one, APCD, sorry. Santa Barbara Air Pollution Control District is going to have a regular burn, a regulated burn out at Sedgwick along, if the weather permits this week. So you're liable to be seeing smoke and smelling smoke, depending on how close you live and what the wind direction is from Sedgwick Reserve. That's it. Thank you.
Any others?
Yeah, I will concur with Mr. Jackson's comments that, yeah, we are falling very short on, communication and collaboration with the city. There's people that have complaints always that we don't really have a newsletter. We have news flashes, and they're kind of hard to read. So that's something that we can improve on, and certainly with there is a particular task force, such as, conserving water. We can do a lot better as to informing people how to conserve water, or how, they can work with the city, and also why it's important. I do continue to see people that say are, washing their sidewalks, which is actually prohibited right now. And, comments about how, yeah, we're supposed to conserve, but I like my green plants. And, we all got to make compromises. So I think we can make a better effort on that. And just one more thing. I got a comment on some signage that is not approved. So if we can have an update on how code enforcement is dealing with, signage in the downtown area, that'd be awesome. We all need to be playing by the same rules.
Any other comments?
You're probably referring to some emails we got this week.
Probably.
My comments on the sales tax, I brought this up before, but one newspaper quoted that said the entire council approved or was supporting this sales tax increase, and that's not true. And I said it in the last meeting. I supported the voters voting on it, but I did not support Measure U. As it stands, I'm shocked that what Solvang used to be a relatively conservative town, and I know that there's 58,000 votes still in the county to be counted. Every drop box and mail-in ballot from before the election from the prior Thursday has not been counted. That'll be updated this week, but as it stands, 64 to 35% are in support of Measure U. That was just the mail-in ballots to count on that day, and that was quite shocking. Once again, I'll state my opposition to raising taxes. I'm always against raising taxes, and I had nothing to do with that. On the water issue, I think CJ made a very good point. I'd like to go back. It'd be neat to do an educational thing from 1993 on, when the council did make the deal with State Water, and then we had the March Miracle, and the reservoir filled up. And we sued. We tried to get out of it. We lost. We sued. We appealed. We were informed not to do it. We lost. And so that's one of the reasons we're in one of the boats this boat that we're all in together at this time. So we'll have to see what that goes on. And then also, I don't know, for whatever reason, most of my neighbors are saying that are confident that water rates are going to be reduced coming soon. So we'll see. That's it.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I have one. I wasn't able to see the Veterans Parade in San Ynez because I was at a funeral services for a former colleague. But the fact that it was in San Ynez and not in Solvang really bothers me. And I guess it was an issue of cost. But the parade that we had here was so well received. and respected. I'd like to see the next council do whatever they could to get that parade back.
Concur.
Yep.
I've got a few comments, and one of them would be a meeting I attended last week, North County Subregional Planning Commission, which is a subcommittee of the SBCAG. There was some discussion regarding State Route 166 from Santa Maria to Guadalupe. They're getting ready to do a multimodal corridor study there in that 6-mile stretch. Also, there was a report given on the airport land use compatibility plans for all of the airports within the Santa Barbara County, including our Santa Ynez here. And there was also a discussion and a presentation on the Central Coast Zero Emission Vehicle Strategy, which is being, of course, another thing being mandated by the federal government and our state. And we're still in the middle of a gas and diesel crunch and all the other kind of things going on. So still trying to figure out how that's all going to work out when you have vehicles that pretty soon in the next 10 years are going to be outlined, and they're the ones that are the big movers, all the diesel trucks that bring in all of the freight and transport everything all through the entire United States. And there's no substitute for that right now, and no electric type of vehicle or zero emission type vehicle that will be able to take over that right now. So just be interesting how that plays out down the future, unfortunately.
Sacramento doesn't know that.
Yeah. Anyway, coming up, we had a really nice reception for the grand reopening of the Elverhoy Museum and History and Art Museum on Thursday. There's a few of us that attended that, and if any of you have not been there to see the backyard and the multifacial solar plane panel, take a look at that. It's an interesting way to have that collect, and it does also power a lot of the electricity needs for the museum, which is great. Again, going back to water, they put in non-permeable pavers to help with the sustaining groundwater, so it goes through. And it was just nice to see everybody there supporting that grand reopening, I should say. Friday, we had the Veterans recognition and ceremony at the Vets Hall. That was really well attended, and it was nice to be able to be a part of that. There were a lot of players, including all of the veterans from pretty much every single armed service wing of the United States that was there in attendance, and it's just great to see the community come out and support veterans on that. Saturday, we also had the Veterans Day Parade, and Mayor-elect Mark Infante and I got to represent Solvang there, and I concur with Councilmember Thomas that it really would be nice to have that here in Solvang instead of in Santa Ynez. There were a lot of issues with what happened, and just so everyone is under the right or understands what happened, it was not the cost from what the city of Solvang was charging. So that needs to be clarified. There was a lot of misinformation that went out there in the press, and it made it seem like the city of Solvang was charging something like $15,000 to have that event, and that was absolutely not the case. So I just wanted to make that clear that that was not the city of Solvang. We were part of the cost, of course, as some permitting and things such as that, especially when you're closing down a state highway. But there are some costs involved in that, but that was not the entire fault of the city of Solvang. And I'm hoping next year that we'll be able to bring that back here, where it really should be around our Veterans Memorial Hall. Going around this coming, also attended a really nice concert yesterday at St. Mark's with the Valley Wind Ensemble. It was really well done. They're going to be here as part of our tree lighting ceremony on December 2nd here at the park. So if you missed that, come on out and they'll be a part of our ceremony and celebration here on that time. And moving on, we have coming up at the Vets Hall, a Solvang Chamber of Commerce Business Community Celebration from 5 to 9 on this coming Wednesday at the 16th. It is, RSVPs need to be out there. It is free of charge for Solvang Chamber members, and they also can include one guest. So please get a hold of the chamber at 688-0701 or email mitzi@solvangchamber.com if you'd like to purchase tickets or be a part of that event going on. Also, the chamber was part of the annual Scarecrow Fest winners, or they announced them. And just real quick, I wanted to give a shout out to some of the businesses. San Ynez Valley Cottage Hospital was our best overall for Solvang and also won the most humorous. Home Connection won the most Danish. Cordon of Santa Barbara was the spookiest. Chomp won for best photo opportunity. Forage Florals was best use of recycled material, and State Farm Insurance was the best use of business theme. And those were the winners that were just in the city of Solvang, and they had a valley-wide Harvest Cup competition, and the Buellton Veterinary Clinic won that for the entire valley. So I think, did I get that right, Tracy? All right. And I too wanted to thank everyone in the community and all the volunteers that helped out with the haunted house. As our city manager, Brad, mentioned, there was 2,700 plus people that went through that, which is pretty close to our record, if not the record. And coming up, this coming Saturday, for folks who want to support the Bethania's food distribution, there's an arts and crafts sale at Bethania from 10 to 3 this coming Saturday, the 19th. And in addition to Candace being a part of the city recreation, she's also the president of the Solvang PTO. And this Saturday is also Turkey Bingo at the Vets Hall. So that's from 5 to 9, doors open at 4. And so I just wanted to make sure everybody got that out there. And coming up before we have our next meeting on Friday, right after Thanksgiving, so Black Friday morning at 10 a.m. Is the annual Solvang Parks and Recreation Turkey Trot. It's a 5K run and walk over at Sunnyfields Park. Registration is $25. You can pay there or register at thecityofsolvang.com. And again, that's for Friday, November 25th at 10 a.m. at Sunnyfields Park. And lastly, just for some numbers for the food bank, Bethania, from October 25th, there were 194 households served, 775 individuals, which were a little bit higher than they had been previous. On the 1st of November, 175 households served and 679, so it was down just a bit. I don't have the numbers from last week, but that's all I have for for comments. Lastly, as Councilmember Clark mentioned about the voting, it is knowing that what we have now with district elections, it does not take much to be a winner and or a runner-up in these particular races now, and not just for District 3 and 4, but the next one's coming up in 2 years, which will be District 1 and 2. So just to remind everybody, your vote locally is very, very important. It really does matter. Right now, at the semi-official, there's only 11 votes separating the first and second place in District 3. So it's only, one vote can make a difference. So just to remind everybody to please get out to vote whenever it's your opportunity. Please be a part of these proceedings that we have here publicly, whether you come here or attend any of the forums. Feel free to email any of us as the public city share email address to the city council members. We can't always reply immediately because of possible Brown Act violations, but if you do us individually, we can sometimes answer those emails back to you. But it is important to stay engaged and hold us accountable, just like you are right now. I mean, you know, hey, it is, we all swore an oath to do and what we could to help the community be as best as we can. And, you know, we're not perfect. We are trying to do the best that we can with the information that's given. Some things we're not allowed to say because of personnel issues. So we do have some announcements, I think, that are going to happen on that. But just wanted to let everyone know we're still all in your park. And we thank you for your support and thank you for seeing so many people here. It's actually really great to see kind of a full house, so to speak. So thank you for being here. Moving on to item number 4 is the consent agenda. I was told at the very beginning that item J will be not included in this. We needed to add, our city attorney will let you know what he needed to do.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the last meeting when the ordinance was introduced, we did not have an administrative services director on board. We do now, and that position does need to be added to the conflict of interest code. So the recommendation is to go ahead and pull the ordinance number 220361 and do another first reading of it by adding the administrative services director position to the ordinance. And then the second reading would come back to the council at a subsequent council meeting.
And that would be for probably next council meeting?
Correct.
On the 28th, okay. So all items on the consent agenda, is there any council members at this time that would like to pull any other items?
I don't want to pull, but I just want to make a comment about H. City purchased a mini excavator for $89,000, and I brought up the last meeting, well, did we get a bid on a used, and they said, no, we didn't put that in the RFP. And I was looking at the same type of mini excavators, and there's a lot of low mini excavators out there for the $50,000 to $60,000 range. So I just think, I wish going forward we could be more creative in looking at ways to save money.
Is that something that we could pull and
No,
do that?
we have a contract with them.
We already have a contract. Okay. Any other comments or items on the consent agenda?
Yeah, a couple of comments on item I for the daily light and music show. I was just wondering, do we have a rendering or any sort of description of what the show would look like?
I can add a few comments.
Yeah, please do.
Good evening. So there's not necessarily renderings out there, but what they are going to be doing is taking the existing lights that are currently in the trees and adding technology to it so they can then activate those lights to have movement to it, right? So dim, brighter. Up lights around the park. They're going to be adding lights to the buildings on the bathroom, the gazebo, as well as movement, like gobo type of items. But that's kind of all I have at this time.
Okay, so is the light show going to happen at the park mostly?
Correct, yep. So the whole park will be activated with lights throughout the park, adding more, taking the existing ones, and then adding music as well.
Okay, thank you.
Cheryl?
Yes.
Do we have, I've noticed a number of trees don't have lights on them as you go down the street. Are we getting that taken care of?
Within the park, they're actually going to be adding some more lights to some of the trees that do not, but it's within the confines of Solving Park.
Just the park?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can follow. We just did some major trimming down through there, and so now we're following up, replacing lights that may have been part of that trimming and failed. So yeah, the whole street will be reevaluated and replaced where we need to replace lights.
We got
Thank
an
you.
email about that this week with the trees in front of Lansby.
Okay. And Roger, you know about that? You were part of that? Okay. All right, thank you.
You killed Christmas at Lansby. Yeah.
All right. Is there any other council members wishing?
Yeah,
Any other ones?
yes, about, let's see. Yeah, item L, well, we have your attention, Roger. About looking at purchasing the 410 Second Street.
Yes, this item is to hire a government real estate professional to assist us in pursuing the purchase of 410 Second Street. And the idea is that it would be for our San Ynez Valley Transit, their offices. Currently, they're in the vets hall. I need to find a new home for them by the end of the year, hopefully for the next 6 months, because we'll be able to purchase this property and retrofit it and move them in. But that's what we're looking to do. We do have there is some monies available in our transit fund that are slated to, they can only be used for capital improvements.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't use them for operations or advertising or anything else. So we do have a bit of a nest egg that we can utilize for this.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Is that to utilize for the 20,000 or for the purchase?
No. That's to utilize for the purchase. The 20,000 is going to come out of our existing budget, which was a balanced budget for transit. And we're currently, we slated $36,000 this year for potentially renting out a place for them to be. They haven't been paying rent to stay at the vets hall, although I'll be likely having to pay rent.
Right.
So I'm going to be utilizing that line item for the 20,000, which is not only for their services of helping to negotiate and lay things out, but also the necessary appraisals and other things that go into a government purchase.
And just to be transparent, is this a cost purchase-wise that would be shared 3 ways?
This is a cost that is, the monies that we received are from the transit, they're the transit monies that we receive from the state and the feds. And they're the monies that come to not only the city of Solvang, but also the city of Buellton and the county that get funneled to SYVT. So
Right.
it's SYVT money. It's not general fund money that goes to fund this stuff.
Right.
But it is split 3 ways because the monies that we receive are the allotments for the 3 organizations.
Right. Yeah, I just want to make sure people understand it's not the city of Solvang that's only buying it. It's shared.
No, we are the managing member of SYVT, but there are three. The city of Buellton and the county is also involved for San Ynez Valley.
All right. Thank you. Any last ones? Is that it?
No, that's it, that's all I
Should do
have.
it? Okay. Then I'll take it out for public comment. Is there any other? Actually, we already did that. Sorry, my mistake. So, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda items as listed.
With the noted
With
change
noted
to.
change
Correct.
to J.
Thank you, I apologize.
Second by Councilmember Thomas. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante?
Yes.
Councilmember Arona?
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas?
Yes.
Mayor Uhrig?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on to regular business items, item number 5. Madam Clerk, would you please read the title?
Discussion and possible action regarding Solvang Chamber of Commerce Tourism Marketing Cap Contract Proposal.
I will be recusing myself from voting in these items, seeing as I am a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and also they do hire us every so often for our trolley services.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. So
evening.
for the staff report, the recommendation is to provide Solvang Chamber of Commerce with $50,000 that would be spent on maps and printed marketing collateral. Should I go through the discussion listed out on the
think
staff
so.
report? Great. So during the June 27th council meeting, the Solvang Chamber of Commerce requested $250,000 for 2 years each for marketing, maps, and distribution, operational costs, and events. The city of Solvang did grant $50,000 for maps, distribution, and business listings at the meeting. During the July 11, 2022 council meeting, the Chamber of Commerce presented seeking an additional $200,000 for the 22-23 fiscal year to fund marketing and operating costs. City Council appointed Mayor Uhrig and Councilmember Thomas as subcommittee to review the funding requests from the Chamber of Commerce. On September 1, the Tourism Advisory Committee, the Abbey Agency, presented a marketing plan and budget that the TAC adopted. The TAC did not recommend an allocation of funds toward printed market materials. In reviewing the marketing plan and budget from the TAC and the Chamber request, the subcommittee recommends $50,000 to the Chamber of Commerce to support creating, printing, and distributing maps, guides, and brochures. The printed marketing materials will help drive visitation and sales for the business community.
Are there any questions of the staff report?
No.
No. Taking it out for public comment then. Is there anyone, I don't have any speaker slips on this particular one. Is there anyone wishing to comment or speak on item number 5? Seeing none, bringing it back for final comments and a motion.
I'll move that we accept the recommendation for the $50,000 support for the chamber.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark,
Because we've been through this before, yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante,
Yes?
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Mayor Uhrig.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 6. Madam Clerk, would you please read the top?
Discussion and possible action to approve the agreement with Ralph Anderson and Associates, Inc. for city manager recruitment services in the amount not to exceed $27,500 for the term November 14, 2022 through April 30th, 2023, and authorize the city manager to execute on behalf of the city, and to approve a budget amendment, a budget adjustment in the amount of $27,500 from the general fund to the administrative services fund.
Is there a staff report?
I can give you a brief staff report. Excuse me. When you hired me on as interim, one of the tasks I was given was to find a replacement. So I went out and sought a couple proposals, and I think the one from Ralph Anderson is going to be your best one. It's a fixed fee of $27,500, and it lists the tasks that they'll do. Essentially, they'll be contacting the council members, who may be the future council members, to develop a job assignment for what they would like the brochure to look like and what you're looking for in a city manager. You know, I was able to actually find the one that they did when I left in 2018. So you've got a pretty good base for the document that would lead towards recruiting a new city manager. And so, I mean, I would recommend you use the private firm. They have much broader reach than just trying to accept applications internally. So with that, I would recommend that you approve the professional services agreement.
All right. Thank you. Is there any questions of the staff report?
Not questions.
Comments?
What? One quick one. Was this the organization recommended by the Cal Cities?
Yeah, originally that was one of the firms that I got from Dave Molyneux, yes. And they've done many city manager recruitments, including Bielsen.
Looking at their report that they filed with all of the city managers that they've hired in, and they've got a hell of a lot of experience. So excellent. Thank you.
And it gives them a big pool to draw from, that they've contacted these people.
All right. Is there any other questions regarding that? Nope. Take it out for public comment at this time. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this particular item for public? I don't have any speaker slips on this. Bringing it back, and no one on Zoom, so if we don't have any final questions or comments, we'll just.
I have comments.
Go ahead.
The previous firm that we used this is the most important decision that council can make. And we've had 5 city managers in 4 years. And as somebody I respect a lot told me once, that if a board of directors had 5 CEOs in 4 years, they would can that board. We really need to do our homework, this council and the future council, and really vet these people. And hopefully it's not just, this firm is in the business of providing applicants. That's how they get paid. And then we assume that we have to choose one if there's 8. The previous firm brought us about 7 or 8 candidates. One was from a town in the Central Valley that could not have been more different than Solvang. No tourism whatsoever, no hotels, a lot of Section 8s, a lot of government assistance. I'm like, why are we even talking to this gentleman? Because that was what we paid that headhunting firm to provide, was just warm bodies that need a job. So I just can't stress enough how important it is to bring in the right person that's going to feel comfortable with us, as well as us with that person. There's just so much at stake, and this is such with the previous city manager and looking for a new city manager, and as Mr. Rennie talked about, the cost involved. This can't be taken lightly or quickly, and don't feel, and I'm speaking to the new council as well as this council, don't feel that if you've got 8 candidates, you have to choose one of those. You're paying somebody $27,000 to provide you with somebody that's going to be the soul of this city, because it's not the city council's job to run this city. It's the city manager's job. And I sure hope, and I've said this to one of the newspapers last week, that the new council gives this person a vision and gets out of the way. That is the most important thing that we can do for this city manager, is to let that person, he or she, do their job. So I just can't stress that enough. And I own it. I was with the last council that took what we thought was the best of the group that was presented to us, and I wish I knew more at that time. I was a brand new council person, and we should have said, go find us some more people. You're going to get a lot of it at the salary range at $170,000. You're going to get a lot of assistant city managers and assistants to this group or whatever that are put up here, because it's going to be very, very difficult to find somebody for $170,000 that's going to move their family to Solvang. Hopefully, maybe you can find somebody that's maybe got 7 or 8, 9, 10 years left and wants to retire here and has made some money in Santa Clara in the $300,000, $350,000 range. But it's going to be a tremendous task to find somebody for $170,000 to move here when one-bedroom apartments rents for $3,000. We did this with a planning director who ended up sleeping on somebody's couch for 8 months and went back to her home in the Central Valley. So it's a dilemma for towns like Solvang that are so popular. So I just can't stress to this council and the new council how important it is, and do not settle. Whatever you do, do not settle. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Robert. All right. Any final comments? Then we'll take it out for vote. Madam Clerk, would you please take roll? Oh, I got to get a motion.
I'll move that we accept.
I'm already moving on.
Yeah, you're ready to go, I know. Short timers.
Sorry.
I move that we accept the contract.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Roll call,
Just to be
please.
clear, that also includes the budget adjustment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Motion as written.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante.
Yes.
Councilmember Arona.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Mayor Urick.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right. And moving on to item number 9. Any AB 1, 2, 3, 4 reports? Or final council closing comments?
I have one. I'm the Solvang representative for the Library Advisory, and we are finally going to have post-COVID first in-person meeting next month, so that's fun.
Yep.
I want to report that I had a meeting with the Historical Association that has the lease on Lot 72. They wanted to make sure that, as the incoming mayor, I had an understanding of what that lease was, what the limitations were, and what their expectations are, and how they can help us. You're smiling, Charlie.
He wants to pave it.
It was a nice meeting. Pizza was good.
Good.
And I paid for my own.
I'll just be attending a SBCAG meeting on Thursday. So that's all I've got coming up. And with that,
Wait a minute, one
Well-
last comment. I got to tell you one thing. You get a kick out of this. So when Charlie and I, the mayor and I, were in the Vets Parade out at San Ynez last weekend, John Palmentary was the announcer for the parade. So he's standing there, and the mayor and I are standing in the back of this, in the bed of this Jeep, going down the street, and John says, "There's the former mayor and the current mayor."
I know.
Yeah, he wasn't going to wait for the results or get his sworn in. So anyway,
There you go.
I thought I'd throw that in.
Thank you, Mayor-elect Infante. All right, that's all I have, and we'll adjourn the meeting at 7:30. Thank you all for being here. Next meeting, 6:30, November 28th.